Okay, hi everyone, derived energy versus the skeptical heretic, part 4. Okay, in your last video, the skeptical heretic, you described antinatalism as being informed by self-serving and egocentric needs and being entirely subjective. And you brought into the debate this notion of having children has a negative utilitarian effect, positive effect, in terms of abating or removing or alleviating suffering. And you gave an example of somebody having a parent, a child, and then that child sets up a shelter for abused women. So if he comes into existence, then that's beneficial to people who already exist or who will exist in the future. I want to tackle this video by reading out 40 reasons to have kids, which I downloaded from the internet. Karen Edmiston, 40 reasons to have kids. You can look it up if you like. I'll leave a link. And I'm going to talk through these reasons, and then I'm going to relate it to these two main points you made in your last video. Okay, so number one. This person says, desiring children with the man you love is as natural as breathing. So here we have like the naturalistic fallacy. You know, if something is natural, then it's a good thing. But of course, we have all kinds of natural instincts and desires that can have negative consequences. You know, I mean, have you ever been in a situation where you've been working with a colleague or a boss or a client, and you've felt it's been natural for you in that situation to tell that person just to do one? You know, but that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing just because it's natural. You could lose your job. Have you ever been to a beach and seen a particularly attractive woman in a bikini and just felt, oh, I just want to grab hold of their parts and honk them like a horn? So this naturalistic fallacy is going nowhere. Okay, number two. The experience of delivering a new life to the world is singularly exhilarating. So this is a reason couched in terms of the parent's own selfish needs. They want to experience that exhilarating moment, and here we have the optimism bias, which is very prevalent in the human race. You know, that they're anticipating feeling exhilarated as they have the child, but you know, pregnancy can be a very painful thing for the mother to put herself through, and about one in 10 women experience postnatal depression. And I've made a video about postnatal depression, and I'd recommend anyone to watch that, because I can see there is a link between postnatal depression and recognizing the horrifying, absurd, pernicious nature of procreation, but I won't go into that now. 3 is about breastfeeding. It's not only economical, efficient and good for the baby, but it releases hormones that relax and calm both mother and child. Okay, but if you don't create that child, then there's no need to have to relax and calm the child. So that's not a reason. It's not a good reason. The world doesn't revolve around me and my daily desires. Well, the world revolves around you, and you wanting, you needing to create a miniature copy of yourself, just so you can see your plastered features on another human being. You know, if the world doesn't revolve around you, you can make positive contributions to society. If you have this surplus of energy and time and enthusiasm, you know, to help other people, then you can do that. You don't need to have children to do this. 5. Every human being has dignity and worth. Yes, I agree. Every human being does have dignity and worth, but the reason they need to have dignity and worth is because they're vulnerable, and you're creating vulnerability when you're having a child. 6. A child is an unbreakable bond between husband and wife. Love breeds love and more love and more. There's nothing more desirable than the father of your children. A child is an unbreakable bond between husband and wife. This is ridiculous. Have you seen the divorce rates, internationally? I mean, in the UK, I think it's 1 in 3, at least. So there's no such thing as an unbreakable bond. It's not a guarantee at all that if you have a child, it'll cement a mother and father's relationship, a husband and wife's relationship together. It could have the opposite effect. Could create diversion, division, conflict. 7. A couple becomes a family. The whole becomes greater than its parts. I mean, this is just a slate at people who do not decide to have children. Am I inferior than you because I don't have a child? Am I inadequate because I don't have a child? It's just a slur. 8. Having a child is a cooperation with the sacred. Well, I won't insult either of our intelligence by going into that point. 9. Children are some of the most charming little people I know, full of wonder, curiosity, and innate kindness. Properly nurtured, they become equally charming adults. This is problematic. This is problematic. You don't know what the nature of your child is going to be like. I mean, you just cannot predict that. I mean, we don't have a magic microscope that we can look into to see how our child is going to be before we have them. We don't know if they're going to be charming. We can try to guide them in that way, but it's to do with how their brain is set up. It's to do with the neural chemical transmitters inside the brain and how the neurons fire and the way their brain is structured. Okay. 10. You get to read all the favourite books of your childhood all over again. Well, I've got some favourite books from my childhood. The Day of the Tripods, for example. I can read that. I don't need to have a child sat here with me so that I can read a book. I mean, it might make the experience more enjoyable for me, but then I'd be bringing that child into existence to alleviate my own suffering. 11. Children naturally grasp the lesson that people are more important than things. Well, some children do, but not others. I mean, some children bully other children. I mean, I was bullied when I was a child, So my peers, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, they would treat me with less respect than they treated their bags or their toys. So they don't naturally grasp that. 12. Children teach us the freedom that comes with self-discipline, self-sacrifice. So you need a child to help you to develop self-discipline and self-sacrifice. But it's not about sacrifice. If it's about self-sacrifice, then you wouldn't have that child, because you'd be sacrificing the future possibility of you having a child to alleviate your own suffering, so that you're not imposing pain, suffering and death on your child. 13. The biggest drudgery is facing no one but myself day after day. Well, then in that case, then you're inadequate as a person. You need to find some way to stimulate your mind. You need to pursue activities, recreational activities, travel, immerse yourself in work. Distract yourself from the futility and absurdity of the human condition. Go out and make some friends. Why do you have to create another human being? Why don't you spend some time with your friends? 14. I am not ideal. Why should I expect my child to be? Kids teach us the joy of unconditional love and acceptance. No, you're not ideal because you're a human being. We're irredeemably flawed. Each and every one of us, we've been injected with these needs and desires and wants that are not compatible with reality. We can never satisfy all of them, so there's going to be a gap between what we want, what we need, what we desire, and what the reality of that situation is. Excuse me. Number 15. I will inevitably disappoint my children because I'm not perfect. Yes, you will inevitably disappoint your children. But have them anyway, hey. Where's 16? Got a bit of a cough. When your husband becomes the father of your children, a new man appears, fiercely loving but practical and still logical. Logical, don't make me laugh. If you're logical, it's not logical to want to have children if you realise that you cannot deprive them of anything and you're exposing them to pain, suffering and death. That's not logical. The human race, generalised human nature, is not logical. They're irrational, you know. We're animals where we haven't fully taken on board the implications and the ramifications of being an animal. You know, it's like this pen, this pencil, this pen, right? If I want this pen to survive and procreate, then it has no desire. It's an inanimate object, so it has no desire to survive and reproduce. So it's just an inanimate object. With Mother Nature, it injects these needs and desires so that it can go about and survive and reproduce. There's no logic here. There's absolutely no logic here. The child to whom you give life may be the one to fight the culture of death and the notion of a brave new world. Yeah, or they could perpetuate it. That this is going to the deontological consequentialist kind of argument. You know, yes, you could have a child, and they could help someone like this. Is that going to come up? I was going to make an amusing pink wig there with glasses, but they could, you know, shelter women who have been abused by their husbands or partners, you know. But if you have a child, they're just as likely to be one of those abused women, or maybe even worse, the actual a male who actually abuses women. So you're arguing that people should bring people into existence so that they can alleviate suffering of other people. You want to use people as instrumental tools like that when you've got you can only hypothesize about the future life of the person you're bringing into existence and the impact that they will have on other people in the wider community. I mean, it's sick. It's like an absurd game with Russian roulette. It's how could you do that to your own child? And why aren't people being transparent about their reasons for having children if that's the case? They're not. They talk about toes, baby toes. They're talking about, you know, the exhilaration of delivering a baby. They're not thinking about negative utilitarian value.